goes. Carolina takes it 31-24. And let's go to James Brown in New York.
All right, Jim, so Carolina keeps pace in the NFC South with that win. As you mentioned, Minnesota snapping its 8-game win streak. We take you now to an overtime affair. Indy at Buffalo. Buffalo trying to keep its famed playoff hopes alive. All knotted at 7. 2:32 left in overtime. Let's take you out to the announcers, Spiro Ditas, Adam Archuleta, and Steve Tasker.
And a quarterback that place with 3 to go. All right, that's our story here for Rich Gannon and Jenny Dell. Kevin Harlan sending you to James Brown in New York.
All right, Kevin, so Kansas City snaps its 4-game losing skid with that victory there. We take you now, as you mentioned, to the game, the Winter Wonderland, Indy and Buffalo in OT. 2 minutes left in overtime, all knotted at 7. Let's join Spiro Ditas, Adam Archuleta, and Steve Tasker.
Bills from their own 39. Webb.
CBS Sports presents the Geico Play of the Day.
In Buffalo, the weather outside is frightful, but to hardy Bills fans, it's so delightful. Needing a victory to stay in the playoff hunt, Nathan Peterman, who had a frosty start to his pro career, freezes the coach Chris Milton with this toss and finds Calvin Benjamin for this 8-yard, wonderfully wintry score.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. This is the State Farm postgame show.
And welcome back inside Studio 43 and the State Farm postgame show. I'm James Brown alongside my guys, Coach Nate Boomer and, of course, Phil Simms. Let's get you caught up on the highlights here. Talk about some exciting action today.
All right, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Check it out right here. We had Frosty the Snowman last night. Today we have Buffalo the Snow Game. And Brissett right there going over to his tight end, Jack Doyle. And check this out, LaShawn McCoy doing what he does. I'm going to call you LaShawn the Snowman McCoy. He does it in the snow. He does it in the sun. He does it everywhere. Buffalo, they go on to win in overtime, 13-7. LaShawn McCoy was as good as ever.
McCoy, 32 carries, 158 yards. A touchdown, as Nate says, Snowman getting it done in the snow. And the guy who was on the sideline all afternoon for us, Mr. Steve Tasker. Steve, you've seen some bad weather before. You said this was the worst you've seen it there in Buffalo?
Yeah, it was the worst game I've ever seen. I've seen bad conditions in Buffalo, obviously. I've lived here for 30 years. I've never seen this franchise have to play in their building under conditions like this. It was horrible. They played a few years ago in Cleveland. I was at that game. This was actually even worse. It started about 30 minutes before the game, and you had offensive and defensive linemen. They didn't even want to take a straight line off the field. They were walking down the yard lines because the snow it exhausted them to walk through the snow. It was so deep. It was just horrible. The wind was bad. Adam Vinatieri continued to struggle in this building. He made a kick, a long extra point to send it to overtime, and then missed one that would have won it. It was just a horrible, horrible day of conditions. You could tell that. By the way, LaShawn McCoy set a personal record, 32 touches today. He's never carried the ball that many times in a game, and he was sensational.
Fan or viewer standpoint, of course, it was picturesque. But what was the most difficult thing from a player standpoint that they had to execute today in those conditions?
I think you get a bunch of guys who are used to being able to run around and move. These guys can all run. Even the big guys can run. Nobody could run today. They couldn't pick their feet up out of the snow. It was bad. You know, not only were you slipping and sliding, but they couldn't pick their feet up to move. It was really a game carried out in slow motion. I think it was really frustrating. You got these guys like T.Y. Hilton, like Kelvin Benjamin, LaShawn McCoy, Frank Gore. None of these guys looked like themselves. It looked like a neighborhood game in the front yard after you've eaten Thanksgiving. Nobody could pick their feet up. I mean, it was really in slow motion, and you could tell it was very frustrating, not only for the offensive skill players, but also for the defenders chasing. And the whole game took place in slow motion, and it was really frustrating for the players.
Great word picture indeed. Steve Tasker, thank you so much. Excellent job throughout the game, helping us to understand the difficulties faced by those players. Steve Tasker, thank you so very much. Back here inside of Studio 43. Coach, so let me ask you from a coach's standpoint, what in the world could you do under those conditions?
You know, the one thing that happens, you go back into the locker room before a game and you sit down and you look at your game plan, because the game plan that you had put together, and even the night before, you certainly have to adjust it. You adjust your thinking, whether you're with the wind or against the wind, on what side of the ball do you want to run the football, if you're going to run it, if you are going to throw it, what kind of throwing can you do? So it's one of those games where you're really acclimating as the game's unfolding to see what you can and can't do. So you bear it down, and then you start to build it up as you start to get a better feel for the surface.
You know, I actually give Sean McDermott credit for the end of regulation. He decided to punt the ball as opposed to go for a 4th and 1. And we're all sitting here going, come on, go for it on 4th and 1, and let's see if we can get this game over with.
Yeah.
But he ended up punting it, and then ultimately that came back to help them because it went into overtime. They got the ball. LaShawn McCoy was unbelievable. You played against LaShawn McCoy in a game similar to this, am I right?
To the day, 4 years ago, 2013, week 14, in fact, it's the Detroit Lions. We're playing in Philadelphia, and LaShawn McCoy, he goes in at halftime. He comes out and has an amazing game. Here we are right here. It almost looks the same. At this point, the snow had actually slowed down. And I thought to myself, what kind of cleats did you have on? And I walked up to him after the game. I said, did you go in and get some mountain climber cleats, bro? Because he was running all over the place. Guys were sliding around, and he was moving left to right. It's funny because there's certain guys that have so much body control. And as we're watching this snow fall down, guys slipping and falling every single place, you see LaShawn McCoy in control of every single movement and looking like he's poetry in motion.
Kept his feet under him the whole time, no doubt, when you watch him play. And also the other thing is that I thought, Bill, both coaches really managed the game very well. Totally. They knew the elements. Totally. And I kept saying, play chicken. Yeah. Just wait for the other team to make a mistake. Patience. And how about Joe Webb? The third-string quarterback comes in, and he throws the ball down to Deontay Thompson, who they just picked up a couple weeks ago, and that won them the game, or helped them win the game.
Well, Nate said he saw it up close and personal back in 2013. So any surprise that we talk about brilliance on the field presented by Kay Jewelers. And, of course, it is Bills running back LaShawn McCoy who got it done.
And that's it, JB. I want you to pay attention. Look at the conditions. I want you to see the guys falling all over the place while he is picking up his knees and driving through the snow.
On the beach.
That's exactly what it is. It's running on the beach. You know, the only thing is your digits are cold. He had 32 carries, 156 and a touchdown. 4 years ago, he had 29 carries, 217 and 2 touchdowns. So LaShawn McCoy, they talk about playing in the elements, coach. This man right here exemplifies toughness.
Well, they say guys are mutters. That's not a mutter. That's I guess it's just like a snowplow, right?
You know, he's the biggest reason they're still in his playoff hunt. He's been solid all year long. Tyrod Taylor was the defense has had some moments. Right. But LaShawn McCoy, he makes a lot of these plays on his own.
Listen, they're still alive in this playoff hunt because we're talking about in the AFC. I think 10-6 will get you into the playoffs in the AFC, and they're still alive right now at 7-6.
Yep. Coach, it was an understatement to say it was a sense of urgency for Kansas City.
Yeah, he got backed into a corner, Andy Reid, this week. Cutting Marcus Peters or suspending him for a game. As you can see right here, Kareem Hunt takes us from 1 yard out. That's the first rushing touchdown in 9 games. And Chakandrick West to take the handoff and go 13 yards. Kareem Hunt, 116 yards in a day. His first 100-yard game since week 5. They jumped out to a 26-0 lead. Oakland 2 late touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Big win for Kansas City, and now really puts the Oakland Raiders, as you can see with this playoff picture, really behind the 8 ball right here. This was like an elimination game in Kansas City again, and they're looking right now in charge of their own destiny. They have a big matchup against the LA Chargers in 2 weeks.
You know, and LA is playing right now against Washington. They lead 3-0 early in this game. So really nothing has changed in the AFC, you know, from today, obviously, because Pittsburgh has to play tonight. New England has to play tomorrow night. And by the fact that Kansas City does beat Oakland, they hold on to that number 4 spot right now. Really, the big games going on this afternoon that could actually impact the playoffs could be between Philadelphia and the Rams. And, of course, when you take a look at Seattle at Jacksonville, those 2 games could have profound impacts on the playoff seeding.
Yeah, Boom, you're saying nothing has changed, but I beg to differ. I feel like our perception is starting to change about Kansas City. Maybe we're starting to see them like we saw them early in the season. Last week, we saw Alex Smith go out there, had a good game, but the Jets played an even better game. Right. And then right now, they're getting another win. Maybe they're picking up steam. This could be the month of December. While it's cold outside, these guys are heating up.
I think I took Kansas City today. It's about the only game I picked right the whole day. But you know the reason I took them is just for this reason, because they suspended Marcus Peters, and I said maybe that's the wake-up call to get the whole team going, hey, the alert call. And they came out today and they played aggressive. Their offensive line, they ran the ball. You said it, Bill, with Kareem Hunt. And if you want to win, You need an offensive line to help you get it done.
And I got to tell you, I mean, I was very disappointed in the effort that the Oakland Raiders came out with. You talk about a team had won 3 out of their last 4. Their last 2 they've won. They're right back into the mix for the AFC West. They have everybody back healthy, and yet they come out and
laid an egg.
26-0 it is in the second half of that game. Very disappointing in the effort that they put forth, particularly on the offensive side of that ball.
This is money time of the season. Let's see who steps forward and shows their stuff. All right, folks, a lot more to go as we continue here with the State Farm postgame show. It'll continue after this. The road to the Final Four continues Saturday with a doubleheader right here on CBS. Syracuse and Georgetown will tip off the action 12:30 Eastern. That'll be followed by Cincinnati at UCLA.
All right, guys, check this out. After a Carson Wentz interception, the Rams get the ball on around the 37-yard line. After a few plays, Todd Gurley goes in 1 yard out. The Rams lead the Eagles right now 7-0.
Well, here we go. Los Angeles Chargers. Phillip Rivers to Hunter Henry for 6 yards and a touchdown. The Chargers, they come out and throw the ball so they can run it later.
I'll tell you what, what a game by Phillip Rivers already. He's on the money. He's accurate. And I'll tell you another one down in Carolina, a huge game between the Vikings and the Panthers. And what a play by Cam Newton. Watch this run, folks. This is what football's all about. I mean, this guy is trucking down the field. Nobody wants to get in his way. This is going to be 62 yards, and that's really the longest play, I think, from scrimmage against this Viking defense throughout the year. That's Jonathan Stewart goes over for his 3rd touchdown of the day. You know, the Vikings actually came all the way back, tied the score, and that was the last offensive series for the Carolina Panthers. They win 31-24 over the Vikings.
Hey, boom, and then after the game, it was our Tracy Wolfson who caught up with Cam Newton.
Cam, the biggest play of the game, that 62-yard run to set up the touchdown, especially after the interception. Can you describe the run, the feelings, the emotions at that time?
Well, I mean, you know, when you have a game like this, offensively at the last little bit, it becomes frustrating. But, you know, just thinking positive and, you know, just leaning towards on the whole team. Great defensive effort from our guys. I can't speak highly of those guys enough. And it was just a result of a play that was just being there.
For you, going against this Vikings defense has been a struggle in the past. What was the difference today?
Jonathan Stewart, C-Mac, and the offensive line, you know, they did a great job with, you know, running the football and staying ahead of the sticks on early downs.
Well, this is a huge win. I don't have to tell you in terms of the playoffs and a 3-game homestand that you started with New Orleans losing on Thursday, though. How important was this victory?
This is playoff football. This was a playoff atmosphere today. We have a very young team, and, you know, just getting a win like this kind of, you know, puts things in perspective of how you have to prepare, how you have to practice, and just for it to come into fruition for a win for us, you know, we're going to need that more than ever moving forward with the next couple of games.
Go enjoy it. Good luck. Thank
you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, let's get some more highlights. Detroit Lions, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 4th quarter. Jameis Winston, he's looking for Leonard West. There's a ton of turnovers in this game. 8, matter of fact, 5 by the Bucs, and here it is. Listen, Sooner or Prater, that's Matt Prater, that is. He's going to win this game for the Detroit Lions, 24-21. Theo Riddick, though, touched the ball 16 times, 93 yards, and had 2 TDs.
And I'll tell you, the Cleveland Browns go off to a hot start, particularly behind DeShone Kizer. He had 3 touchdowns on the day. Here he finds Josh Gordon, his first touchdown since the 2015 season. But Brett Hundley, 3 touchdowns on the day, 35 of 46. There he finds Devontae Adams. Then in overtime, after an interception turnover by DeShone Kizer, you can see Devontae Adams, his 2nd touchdown of the day in overtime. 20 unanswered points for the Green Bay Packers as they win 27-21.
So, Boomers, we take a look at the NFC playoff picture again. Oh, this is money time, folks.
Well, it is money time. We're in the final 4 weeks of the season. You take a look at this. Philadelphia and the Rams are playing right now. Minnesota, by virtue of their loss, is number 2. Philadelphia is number 1. If Philadelphia loses, they obviously will fall to number 2, and Minnesota will move up. But then you take a look at all this stuff that's happening down in the NFC South. And we've been saying this now the last couple of weeks. The NFC South is the only division where the last 2 weeks, every single game that's played in that division is within the division.
Right.
Yeah. So there's still a lot of jockeying to go by. I'll tell you what, That was a huge victory for Carolina today. That was because you just heard Tracy ask Cam. He threw an interception there at the end, and it allowed Minnesota to come all the way back. And they could have scored a touchdown and taken the lead, but they didn't. And you can take a look at the schedules here. They held them to a field goal, forced the tie, and then that's when Cam took off on that 62-yard run. What a huge play! And maybe I'll tell you, that's the biggest spot in the season for the Carolina Panthers thus far.
Yeah, it could be that saving play for the Carolina Panthers. But looking at this schedule, the New Orleans Saints, I'm just keeping my eye on them with Kamara back in the lineup. Right after that game, he came out, like you said, boom, and tweeted, "I'll be back." And with him back in that lineup, they're still one of the most balanced teams in all of football. And out of these three squads, I would say the scariest one.
And I say Carolina, they got to take care of business, as I think Atlanta does. But I think it'll be interesting because in 2 weeks, Carolina is going to become big fans of the Atlanta Falcons to take care of New Orleans, so then they can take care of them the following week. So it'll be, it's just interesting how that's unfolding there. And I like you talk about with this victory, it's going to take 11 wins. When you looked at those in the playoffs in the NFC, 11 wins it's going to take to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, so explain all that to me later because, man, it's so confusing. You talk about the NFC South, it really is. But Minnesota played awful today. They dropped passes. They did everything wrong. And there they were at the end of the game, had a chance to take the lead, and they messed that up too. But Carolina, what makes them, a couple things that make them scared. We know they got a good defensive front, but Cam Newton, healthy. Early in the year, he couldn't make that run because he missed all preseason. He was a little overweight, not in shape. And now today we saw him run the football, and I saw him make some throws into really, really tight spots.
I'll tell you what, he did make some throws today. And watch a couple of these throws. Watch the pattern, watch the accuracy. Look what he's trying to get done with the football. He knows where he needs to put the ball to be completed. Now, interesting.
Look at the window.
Watch this throw. Watch this touchdown throw. I mean, that's all upper body, as Nate and I were talking about during the game when we were watching this. And then, of course, the 62-yard run's ridiculous. I mean, not too many guys could do this at this size. Here's the one thing, guys. This is a huge victory for them. There's a very good chance. The graphic was wrong. There's a very good chance that they could be playing against Aaron Rodgers next week for the Green Bay Packers. They don't go to Green Bay. Green Bay comes to them. And if Aaron Rodgers is in that game, that's going to be interesting because Brett Hundley led his team back to a comeback victory against the Cleveland Browns, and it keeps Green Bay alive.
The one thing I was going to say, 2 weeks ago, we sat there and we saw the New Orleans Saints go to the L.A. Rams, and they lose a game. And I said, it's not bad to lose a game because they'd won 8 straight. Last week, we sat there and saw the Philadelphia Eagles go to Seattle. They had won 9 straight. They lost a game. That's not bad. And I didn't even think for Minnesota. Sometimes a win this time of year is not a bad thing because it's very hard to sustain a very high level of play and to keep the edge. I agree with you. It's a game that they could have won, but they didn't win because they didn't play the kind of football you need to play in the playoffs. Mike Zimmer will point it out to them. This is still a very, very good Minnesota.
But it's how you respond, though. You taste blood in your mouth. You either got to get up and swing back. Yeah. Some of these teams come back hesitant after a loss, though.
Yeah.
Case Keenum did not get a lot of help.
Keep them going.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we'll step aside. A lot more to talk coming your way as the State Farm postgame show continues.
This is the State Farm postgame show.
And welcome back to Studio 43 and the State Farm postgame show update.
That's right. Out in L.A., you got the Philadelphia Eagles coming back. Carson Wentz is going to find Brent Selleck. He's going to throw a touchdown pass. It will kick the extra point 7-7. By the way, no matter what happens in this game for Philadelphia, they will retain or regain, I should say, the #1 seed in the NFC playoffs. And if they do, they're flying in formation. That is their celebration right there. Pretty good idea. 7-7.
All right, so as we all know, Oakland at Kansas City. It was Kansas City snapping a 4-game losing skid. They had lost 6 of 7. So you can imagine after the game, talk about a huge exhale. That's what we saw in the post-game celebration.
Hey. Honestly, we ain't got time to celebrate. Y'all go home, rest up. We back at it, man. Bam on 3. 1, 2, 3. Let's go,
Go ahead, sir.
Well, no, I wanted to say about Kansas City, I didn't recognize their defense today. They pressured the quarterback. They got sacks. And every time I looked up, there was a Kansas City defender all over the back of the open receivers.
I mean, you look at the Kansas City, you talk about right there, like you said, Phil. I mean, Marcus Peters was suspended for one game, but I'll tell you what, they flew around with a sense of urgency, with an energy that was just contagious, and contagious all day long. You know, and it was just a performance that you kind of knew. They kind of felt like they were backed into a corner, maybe coming off their worst performance last week. They come out meltdown. They couldn't get off the field on third down. They couldn't stop them in the red zone. And you did everything to those points this week. They played great situational football, and again, it came up with a big win, a win they had to have.
And, Coach, you know what I love about that defensive package we were just showing? They're rushing 3 and 4 guys, which means they understood the weakness in the back end, the umbrella in their defense. We're going to drop more guys into coverage, and they left it up to their defensive line and linebackers. Let's bring some pressure, some twists up front, and they collapsed that pocket. But it gave extra bodies, though, in that back end. When the balls came out, balls were in the air, defensive back, linebackers, safeties, they were making plays on the rock.
All right, Giants and Cowboys, Phil.
Well, what about that game today? You know, I looked up, it was 10-10. It seemed like for almost the whole game, Eli Manning got it started early to Rhett Ellison for a 1-yard touchdown. And then right before half, it was a slow half by the Dallas Cowboys. Well, this is towards the end of the game. Dak Prescott to Alfred Morris for a long touchdown down the middle that sealed the game. Eli Manning threw a couple late, kind of meaningless interceptions, but the Cowboys, this game was tough. They hung in there. Dak Prescott, 20 of 30 for 332. Turned out to be a terrific day by him. And Eli Manning, not much they can do with that offensive line. They can't run it to sustain drives. They can't protect the quarterback long enough. And they kind of managed the game really well. And then they got behind. Then it's over.
Mathematically, they're still there. Zeke comes back, what, week 16?
Yep.
So, any reason for hope there at all?
Yeah, why not? Yeah. I mean, especially with everybody in the NFC South playing each other.
Right.
I mean, the one thing I will say over the next 3 weeks after this week is finally finished, there's a lot of football to be played against teams that are, trying to make the playoffs together. So when that starts to happen, if you just keep your head down and take care of business, like Green Bay and Dallas right now have to, Coach thinks it's going to take 11 wins, and right now I would say that that's most likely the case. But those two teams, the best they can do is 10 wins each, Green Bay and Dallas, and they are going to have to, just keep their head down. Don't worry about what anybody else is doing. Just try to win the football games that you're playing.
And I agree. And I say that only from the standpoint of when you look at the schedule. I'm not saying a 10-win team, a 10-win season is not going to guarantee you the playoffs.
Right.
You can be at 10 wins and lose one of those tiebreakers. But like you said, the only thing you can control right now is 1 week at a time. I think for the Dallas Cowboys, you sit there and you look at them, you look at the Green Bay Packers if Aaron Rodgers comes back. These are two teams nobody wants to play down the stretch. Every game is a playoff game. We were in that same mindset, just like I said about Atlanta back in 2005. Our playoffs started that week. I only put 1 game up there. So we started from 4 weeks out, 1 game at a time. We're in single elimination, and that's the mode you're in.
And speaking of guarantees, there's no guarantee that this offense is going to play better when Zeke comes back. I mean, you look at Alfred Morris, he's making plays. Smith had himself a day today. But this is some time off. Zeke Elliott, we have no idea where he's at, what he's doing. Is he going to come back in great shape? Is he going to be that much of a difference? This offense needed to catch a rhythm. What we saw Des Bryant get involved. Well, and that's more important than Zeke Elliott coming back on the field.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't see Dallas going on a big run. I just don't see it. The running game, Zeke not in there, and their passing game. Look, what they do today, they hit a late, long touchdown to the running back. Des Bryant caught a short pass. There never seems to be any rhythm. If they can't dominate the run game, they have a hard time winning the game.
That's why this time of the year is still good. I love the diverse opinions. We'll find out what happens on the field as the State Farm postgame show continues here in 43 after this. A reminder, we'll be back for more football next Sunday, starting with the NFL today at noon Eastern, followed by doubleheader action in Week 15 early. Many will see the Bengals against the Vikings or the Jets at the Saints later. In our featured matchup, it'll be the Steelers hosting the Super Bowl champion Patriots. Bill Cowher licking his chops already. That comes your way next Sunday right here on CBS. All right, folks, now let's get an injury update from our NFL Today insider, Jason Lockenfora, in the newsroom. Jason?
Well, JB, there was a troubling scene with the Houston Texans earlier today. Tom Savage appeared to be in some degree of cognitive distress, a difficult scene to see. He was allowed to come back in the game. I checked with the league in terms of concussion protocol. They said it's too soon to say whether there'd be a review launch, but I can tell you Dr. Alan Sills, the chief medical officer of the league, will be contacting Texans medical personnel tonight to begin asking questions about the protocol and obviously how Tom Savage is doing right now. So we'll see where that leads.
Jason, thank you so much. And certainly with the emphasis on player safety, our thoughts and prayers with Tom Savage, hoping for the best there. Jason, again, thank you. More to come on the State Farm postgame show after this. Tonight on CBS begins with 60 Minutes and the man brave enough to challenge Vladimir Putin. That'll be followed by new episodes of Wisdom of the Crowd, NCIS Los Angeles, and Madam Secretary. It's all tonight only on CBS. And as Nate talked about it, LaShawn McCoy, look here, we're going to call him Snowman for sure because he is agile and dangerous in that. Nate said he saw it up close firsthand. Bill, that brought back memories December 12, 1982, 35 years ago, the snowplow game.
You know, it's ironic because this past week, Ron Meyer has passed away. He was the head coach for the Patriots at the time, and he was just trying to take care of his kicker. He ordered the snowplow to come on, make sure you give him a nice place to kick from, and we kicked the game winner right there. And after that, the rule was made that you can't bring the plow back on.
Well, here's the machine.
Yeah, it's a man-made machine right there. This is what they were doing today. They called timeout prior to that kick, I want you to know, so they can make the spot right there. You can see him playing the wind, bending it right back in there, and yeah, that led him into overtime. That was a big kick.
Nate, you're champion over here. Go ahead, buddy. What do you?
I was just looking at that footage, man. It feels so good. When I played in snow one time. I got back to the huddle, and my teammates, Matt Stafford, was trying to give the play. Said, Nate, what are you laughing at? I said, man, this is going to look so good on film. Just seeing the snow everywhere, man. The images of playing in the snow. I'm like a big kid out there.
There you go. That says it all, Nate. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we played a game in Denver once where we landed on Saturday. We practiced in 55-degree weather at Mile High. The next morning, we woke up, and it snowed 12 inches. And I mean, it was so much fun playing in that because as an offensive player, I always felt like we had the advantage because the defensive players had to react to what we were doing. So the pass rush was slower. It wasn't easy to complete passes. But I can tell you one thing, we didn't get hit quite as much.
I had the exact same thing in 1989 in Denver. The night before the game, it snowed so much. I was really happy because it kept all the fans home. So it was much easier to play the game. Now, I played in Buffalo, not in snow like that, where there was 40-mile-an-hour winds and field goal kickers were starting at 15 and 20 yards outside the goalpost.
You know, it is a great neutralizer of sport, and I think when you talk about playing a game in the real elements, there's something kind of unique about that. The ability, what you have to do adjustment-wise and players adjustment-wise, and that was a great game we saw today.
So I tell you what, let's do our show outside in the snow next week. You all for that?
No,
We'll see you next week.
JB, I'm a tropical man.